Ukraine has come closer to a possible end to the war unleashed by the aggressor country Russia. This was stated by the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, during a conversation with journalists. According to him, this happened primarily thanks to the efforts of US President Donald Trump. The head of state noted that the war in Ukraine is unprecedented in the world, and its scale surpasses other armed conflicts. He reminded that the Ukrainian army has been fighting a much stronger enemy for more than 3 years. At the same time, Zelenskyy stated that recently there have been prerequisites for real progress toward peace.
We have come closer to a possible end to the war. I'm telling you for sure, this doesn't mean it will definitely end. But Trump has achieved a lot in the Middle East, and riding that wave, he wants to end Russia's war against Ukraine.
The president of Ukraine also commented on Russia's territorial demands regarding Donbass and called them unacceptable. He noted that the Russians in this matter refer to the so-called referendum they held after the occupation. Zelenskyy emphasized that this is illegal and has nothing to do with reality.
It is clear that if Ukraine accepts what has been put on its plate, that is, a bad territorial solution, then they will try to resolve everything else without us.
Zelenskyy also stated that if he is invited to negotiations in Budapest, he will agree to go. At the same time, he believes that the capital of Hungary is not the best place for such a meeting. As the president explained, he gave a detailed explanation to the U.S. Special Representative Steve Witkoff as to why this idea should be reconsidered. Among the alternative possible locations discussed were Switzerland, Austria, the Vatican, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Turkey. In Orenburg, the gas processing plant is on fire again. Local residents reported the fire on October 20th. The Regional Ministry of Emergency Situations stated that there is no fire at the plant today, according to local media. The Telegram channel Astra analyzed footage from the scene of the fire. According to Astra's analysis, the gas processing plant is indeed captured in the footage. The footage of the fire was taken from the territory of the plant itself. The day before, on October 19th, UAVs attacked the gas processing plant in Orenburg, reported the regional governor Evgeny Solntsev. According to him, the infrastructure was partially damaged. The Orenburg gas processing plant is the largest gas chemical complex in the world. Its processing capacity is 37.5 billion cubic meters of gas per year, according to RBC. Transit to Europe from the Orenburg GPP was halted on January 1, 2025, the publication claims. Kazakhstan is concerned about the strikes by Ukrainian drones on the plant in Orenburg. The day before, drones attacked the gas processing plant in the city, which led to the suspension of Kazakh gas intake from the Karachaganak field. This was reported by Bloomberg.
The strike on this plant caused the suspension of Kazakh gas intake from the Karachaganak field. In other words, Kazakhstan's Ministry of Energy has already stated that this could affect oil production, since the oil and gas projects of the two countries are closely interconnected.
Karachaganak, located near the shared border of the two countries, is one of Kazakhstan's 3 key oil and gas projects. Since oil and gas are extracted there simultaneously, operators cannot reduce gas production without also reducing crude oil output. Meanwhile, the General Staff of Ukraine confirmed the strike on the plant in Orenburg. The agency also reported that fuel and lubricant depots in temporarily occupied Berdyansk were hit. Explosions were heard in the target area, and a fire broke out later. Putin's side rejected Trump's idea of halting troops along the front line in Ukraine. In particular, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov stated that the Russian Federation's negotiating position regarding halting troops in Ukraine at their current positions remains unchanged. He also responded to a question about whether Washington had informed Moscow of its refusal to supply Tomahawks to Kyiv.
We cannot. That's the basis on which we are orienting ourselves regarding this matter. There are also contacts at the working and expert levels where we also have the opportunity to exchange positions.
Peskov declined to comment on press reports about Putin and Trump discussing possible territorial exchanges between Ukraine and Russia. According to him, the work of the Russian and US teams to prepare a Putin-Trump summit in Budapest has not yet begun.
At the moment, none of the details you mentioned are available. Therefore, there is no understanding yet. There is still a lot of homework to be done. Work also needs to be done through the foreign affairs agencies.
He claims that at the summit in Budapest, Russia hopes to make progress toward a peaceful resolution of the Ukrainian issue and to discuss bilateral relations with the United States. He added that Moscow will continue its dialogue with Washington on the issue of the Ukrainian settlement. Let us recall that following his meeting with Volodymyr Zelenskyy at the White House on October 17th, Donald Trump called for an end to the war along the front line.
We had a very good, warm and productive meeting. In my considered opinion, they should immediately and unequivocally stop the ongoing war and implement a complete ceasefire along the entire front line, wherever it may currently be situated. Otherwise, the situation will inevitably become far too complicated and intractable. It will then, regrettably, never be truly possible to resolve this complex issue later on.
At the same time, US President Donald Trump denied media reports that he had urged Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelenskyy to hand over the entire Donbass to Russia. He suggested dividing the Ukrainian region along the current front line. A new assassination attempt may have been planned against Donald Trump. According to Fox News, the U.S. Secret Service, which protects the American leader, discovered a suspicious sniper position with a clear view of the spot where the head of state exits the plane. It is noted that a hunting stand was found near Palm Beach International Airport in Florida. FBI Director Kash Patel stated that it is currently impossible to link the discovered stand to any individual. As he said,
No one was found at the scene. Since then, the FBI has officially taken over the investigation, deploying all resources to collect every piece of evidence from the scene and effectively utilizing our mobile phone analytics capabilities.
According to the publication citing a law enforcement source, the local police have determined when the stand was installed. It is noted that it appeared there months ago and had not attracted anyone's attention until now. Meanwhile, the motorcade of U.S. Vice President Gigi Vance was struck by shrapnel from a 155mm artillery shell. According to media reports, the shell detonated prematurely during a demonstration firing held in honor of the 250th anniversary of the Marine Corps in California. Metal fragments struck motorcycles from the Vice President's motorcade and a vehicle belonging to the State Highway Patrol. It should be noted that in July of last year, there was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump. At that time, he was shot at with a semi-automatic rifle during a speech at a campaign rally. One of the bullets grazed Trump's ear, and one person standing behind the American leader on the platform was killed. 2 more people were injured. The shooter was neutralized by return fire. The editor-in-chief of the Russia Today channel, propagandist Margarita Simonian, announced on her Telegram channel that she began a course of chemotherapy on Monday. In her post, Simonian noted that it is impossible to predict how the treatment will go and when she will be able to return to work.
Today, I am starting chemotherapy. How I will feel and when I will be able to return to you and to the air is unpredictable. Thank you to everyone who prays and wishes me well.
She also asked her followers not to use the phrase "everything will be fine."
When Tigran was ill, I was sent this dozens, if not hundreds, of times a day, and every time my heart would sink because everything will happen as God wills.
On September 22nd, Simonian announced her diagnosis and spoke about undergoing cancer treatment.
This week I was diagnosed with a terrible, serious illness. Tomorrow, I am scheduled to have surgery right here, directly under this metal, but despite that, I still came.
At the end of September, Margarita Simonian's husband, Tigran Keosayan, passed away. At the beginning of 2025, due to heart problems, Keosayan experienced clinical death and fell into a coma. Keosayan hosted the propaganda program International Sawhorse on Russia's NTV channel. Since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the UK, Canada, Australia, and the EU have imposed sanctions against him. Because of Keosayan's statements, the Armenian regulator suspended the license of the Russian propaganda radio broadcaster Sputnik Armenia. Regarding Kazakhstan, he once stated that the country would be next after Ukraine. Because of this, the spokesperson for Kazakhstan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ibex Madyarov, made it clear that the propagandist would be banned from entering the country. An Azerbaijan Airlines plane made an emergency landing at the St. Petersburg airport. According to media reports, the plane, which had 162 people on board, was flying from St. Petersburg to Baku. However, after takeoff, a malfunction was discovered. The landing gear failed to retract. The aircraft began circling over the city and soon made an emergency landing at Pulkovo. Upon landing, it overran the runway. No one was injured as a result of the incident. As one of the passengers recounted, there was panic on board after landing.
We circled over St. Petersburg for more than 3 hours. In the end, we made an emergency landing. There was real panic on the plane, a real emergency. We ended up in a field that is beyond the runway. Firefighters and medics, everyone gathered there.
As a result of the incident, Pulkovo Airport suspended operations. It temporarily stopped accepting and dispatching flights. It should be noted that on October 9th, a MiG-31 multi-role fighter crashed in Russia's Lipetsk region. This was reported by the Russian Ministry of Defense. The plane crashed while approaching for landing after completing a scheduled training flight. It became known that its landing gear deployment system had failed. The aviation industry in Russia is facing huge problems. The Russian government has cut spending on civil aviation, which will lead to fewer flights, a higher accident rate, and an overall decline in the state of the industry. The aggressor country also faces a shortage of spare parts and uses outdated equipment.